Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and also of course welcome back to the big boss. This is where we're going to be installing a beastly off-grid 12-volt system from iTechworld. Now, the usual disclaimer applies here. I am not an electrician by any stretch of the imagination, and this is not really an educational video. It's more for entertainment purposes and maybe to give you a bit of an idea of what you might need if you want to do one of these setups yourself. However, maybe you can glean a few little tidbits of information from this. As I said, don't take anything I say to the bank. Definitely make sure that you fact check any claims that I may make in this video, because I'm not an electrician. But having said that, I have not blown anything up yet. So I reckon I'm going to break this video up into 4 parts. Part 1 is going to be going through all the iTechworld stuff that I've got and I'm going to be putting into this camper van motorhome. Part 2 will quickly go over the existing system that was in this motorhome before I even started, and why I think it's not really off-grid capable, even though they make these bold claims about that sort of thing. Part 3 will be probably a bit of a montage with music of me doing some installation tasks. I didn't go through and film the entire process, because basically it would be a 10-part series of 1 hour long episodes. Probably more than that. It's quite a lot involved. And part 4, I'll show you a detailed look of where everything's installed, what I've used, how I've done it, and how it all works together. Of course, we'll test it out and see if it actually works. Right, let's get on with part 1. We'll have a look at what we've got here from iTechworld. All right, so just quickly, this is not really a sponsored video. It's kind of partially sponsored by iTechworld. I did hit them up. Now I've done my own research, and basically from what I've discovered, iTechworld are probably the best bang for buck that you can get. You know, they are an Aussie company. Obviously the stuff's not made in Australia, but they make good stuff. It's not crap like you know, I'm not going to mention any other brands, but there's other stuff out there that's cheap and nasty. This is well priced, but still good quality. And that is why I chose iTechworld. I didn't get this stuff for free. I still paid. Now, they gave me a modest discount on this stuff. Now, I did still spend thousands of my own dollars on this gear, guys. And as always, guys, I'm going to tell you if there's things about this stuff that I don't like. But so far, pretty good. A couple of little things, which I'll mention later on. Now, we'll quickly go over what we've actually got here. Oh, the first thing I'll mention is the solar panel. So I went with the iTechworld 150 watt hard frame panels. 4 of them, 3 are mounted on the roof. 1 is a mobile panel for chucking out in the sun. In perfect conditions, that obviously gives me a total solar input of about 600 watts. You never get that with roof mounted panels unless they're tiltable or whatever. These are just facing straight up, but hopefully that's going to be enough for our needs. The next item, of course, is the batteries, which store that solar power. And you know what? I didn't want to skimp on battery capacity, so I've gone with 2 of the 240 amp hour batteries, giving us a total of 480 amp hours of power storage. Don't get me wrong, I've seen systems with much more storage than that, but for me, I think that's going to be ample for what we need. It's a lot of power, guys. Trust me, yeah, 480 amp hours, that's a lot. Now, one good thing about the X series of lithium iron phosphate batteries from iTechworld, apart from being waterproof, they have a really good BMS system, which I find from my research is a common fail point for a lot of other cheaper batteries. The BMS or battery management system fails, rendering the whole thing useless. It's a throwaway job unless you can source another BMS and replace it. Big job, not really worth it. So get decent batteries with decent BMS to start with and you'll be good. Now, to get all that solar power and also power from the vehicle's alternator into those big batteries, we have, of course, the iTechworld DC to DC charger. Now, also, as well as being the DC to DC for the alternator, it's got an inbuilt MPPT controller for the solar, up to 40 amps. It does also come with color-coded Anderson plugs, so it all unplugs pretty easily. You got 2 buttons on the front here. One you can select between different battery types, you know, AGMs, lithiums, all that good stuff. There's another button there which you can switch on solar priority. So that means if you're driving along, it'll use the solar power from the sun to charge your batteries rather than the alternator, which can save you fuel and drain on your alternator, whatever. if you happen to be in a position to connect up to grid power or shore power as they call it, you'll want an AC charger. This one is the 20 amp 240 volt charger. So this one, yeah, you just plug into a power point and it will charge your batteries up at 20 amps. Now they do have a bigger one which is 40 amps, but I figured if we're ever hooked up to power, it's going to be overnight, so a nice slow 20 amp charge will you know, extend the battery life of those lithiums. Now the Big Daddy inverter, this is a 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter from iTechworld. It's the one with the inbuilt RCD and ATS, a lot of acronyms there. Basically the RCD is a safety thing, it's a residual current device, and the ATS is an automatic transfer switch, so you can actually plug this guy into grid power as well, so that you know, whenever your van or your motorhome, whatever, is connected up to shore power, it will automatically switch over to using that rather than your batteries and the inverter. And of course, being pure sine wave, it's clean power, suitable for computers and all that sort of stuff. I did also, of course, get the optional RC2 remote for the inverter, so even if you've got the inverter mounted somewhere out of the way, out of sight, which I do underneath this seat here, you can control it remotely with this switch, turn it on and off without having to access the actual inverter itself. Something else that every decent system should have is a shunt and battery monitor. So yeah, the shunt measures the power going in and out of the batteries, and the display shows it to you in an easy to read fashion, because basically from what I understand, lithium voltages don't drop the same way as lead acid and AGM batteries. So you know, you can generally tell a lead acid style battery, you can tell its state of charge from the voltage of the battery itself. With lithiums, they sort of stay the same voltage for quite a long time, so it's impossible to tell what percentage it is charged unless you use a shunt to measure the power going in and out. The only other items I grabbed from iTechworld were a couple of fuses. This one here is a 60 amp MIDI fuse, and I also grabbed a 250 amp maxi fuse for the inverter. So yeah, that's that. Alright, so the original off-grid system in this motorhome consisted of 3 solar panels on the roof, which were about 80 watts each, so a total of 240 watts of solar, and essentially 2 90 amp hour lead acid batteries. They weren't even AGM batteries, they were dual purpose lead acid things. They were deep cycle ones, but if you think about it, 240 watts of solar and what, 180 amp hours of lead acid power. Lead acid batteries, obviously you can only take them down to about 50% before you start damaging them. So in reality, you're looking at more like 90 amp hours of power. You know, that's off grid if you want to do nothing more than charge your phone up and maybe run your fridge. I mean, you wouldn't even run a 3-way fridge with that amount of power. There's no way, I don't think you'd be able to do it. So this, you know, it didn't even have an inverter, this setup. This thing here, I can't remember the brand, it's a Schorn or Schoon, some German brand, Electro Block it's called. Me being the dum-dum that I am, when I first started installing the new system, I wanted to just get rid of all of this. So of course I just started pulling wires and plugs out and unscrewing everything, and there's a whole bunch of breakers underneath that white thing over there, all these plugs and shit, and I just unplugged everything and pulled that out of there. And then, you know, it kind of dawned on me that hang on, I might need that thing, because that has a cable, or you know, a whole bunch of wires in a loom going to the control panel up here, and this controls the pump, the water pump, and then the you know, the level for the water tanks, which is kind of a necessary thing to have. And I was thinking, oh shit, I've ripped that thing out. I have no idea how to put it back together. I had a couple of photos that I'd taken for a mate, which weren't, you know, enough for me to figure out how it all went back together. So I started panicking a little bit. The good thing about that thing is all of the plugs down here, there was a few more of them. They're all different, so they can only go in to their proper spots. So all those plugs are okay. Then with these wires here, they're sort of different colors and thicknesses of wires, so I just sort of matched up the ones that look the same color and thickness. And then I started, and then I got power to the box. That was pretty easy to do on the other side. And I started just connecting wires up one by one and getting my dad to switch on the power box up there to see if it would work. And eventually the correct combination of wires was achieved and it came on and the day was saved. So yeah, normally this box here runs, you know, off power. It'll charge your batteries from AC as well as from the alternator, and it's got all the fuses for your lights and everything, your fridge, it's all wired through this. I've disconnected it from power obviously and from the alternator because all that power is going to be coming through the iTechworld DC to DC. But anyway, that's a quick look at that thing, guys. In this particular instance, you can't get rid of that. Yeah, it was a bit of a stuff up on my part, but thankfully I was able to save the day and get it all working again. But yeah, to me, an off-grid system, that is not with that amount of battery power and solar. So yeah, definitely need upgrading. Anyway, roll on the montage of me trying to do stuff that I don't really know much about. I'll quickly show you guys the moment where I actually first turned this whole thing on, turned that big 300 amp main power switch on for the very first time. There's no editing done to this footage, it's all legit. It was the first time I'd turned it on. I just wired everything up, triple checked it, quadruple checked it, and to the best of my knowledge it was all right, all good. But then, you know, when you're crimping these big ass wires and shit, you just never know if everything's Mickey Mouse. But yeah, it turned out pretty good anyway. Roll that footage for you now. Right, it's been an absolute mission getting this light in set up. Hopefully I've done it all right. It's go time, it's time to turn it on. Fingers crossed there isn't a puff of smoke and nothing else, or a fire. As you can see there, I've got the monitor's working. I've got that all set up to the 480 amp hour capacity. That's the only thing that's going. The main switch is not turned on yet, so I'm going to see what happens. I think I'll shield my eyes. Alright, here we go. was anticlimactic. But no smoke, no explosions. See if the inverter comes on. This switch here. Yeah, that looks good. I'll just turn that off for now. The mess here. Fridge should be on. Ooh. Yep, sweet, we got power to the fridge. What else? Oh, yeah, let's see if this works. Oh, hey. Extra power, extra water. Pump works. Well, folks, I think we've had a win. We have had a win. What else can I check? I guess the lights should all work. Yep. Beautiful. Alright. Very happy. Very happy. Alright, we'll try out this inverter, eh? Oh, before we do the inverter, of course, we want to get the solar cranking. See if that's all hooked up right. So we'll flip the breaker for the solar. Nominally we should be getting about 450 watts from the solar, but it is winter and the panels are not facing directly at the sun, they're just laying flat and probably partly shaded too. So yeah, we're getting 121 watts at the moment, 9 amps. Oh, that's counting the 6 amps or whatever that the fridge is taken out, so that's you know, taking it all into consideration. Alright, here we go, time to test the inverter. Got this power board plugged in to it, which then goes around here. Coffee machine, put some water in here. I'm just going to froth some water. Alright, working. Pumps up to 2200. Obviously that's a bit over the 2000 that it can handle, but a real surge for a little bit. So yeah, coffee machine works. Okay, so part 4 of this video, we'll have a look at all the components of this system that I've installed, guys. Underneath the floor here, we have the cranking battery for the vehicle. As you can see, I've got a couple of cables here, positive and negative, that go from here back into the battery box back there. That is a 16mm cable. Now, when I mention any sizes of cabling, guys, I'm talking about square millimeters, not diameter. Overkill probably for this length of cable that I needed. The battery box is just over here, so it's not that far. We've also got a 60 amp MIDI fuse there as well, just to protect that. So yeah, those cables run back to the DC to DC charger under the floor. Also got the solar panels up on the roof there. So all 3 of those connected in parallel. Don't ask me why I connected them in parallel. I think it's just because there's 3 of them. I think connecting all 3 of them together in series would be too much voltage for the iTechworld DC to DC, or the MPPT charger, sorry. So I've gone with in parallel. I'll show you guys up in here. Okay, so I've just got 4mm dual core cable connected to the MC4 connectors on the solar panels. So all 3 of these wires come down here. As you can see, they're all fused here with 20 amp fuses. Now, having the fuses there is absolutely pointless in my opinion, but that's what you've got to do these days with these new laws to be, you know, the regulations that each panel has to be individually fused. It'd be better to, I think, have individual cartridge fuses on the MC4 connectors on the roof. I'll probably end up doing that eventually. It's just that those cartridge fuses are pretty expensive, and these ones here are good enough to meet the regulations. Hopefully you can see there that all 3 wires, positive wires, and all 3 negative wires go into this 4-pole isolator and breaker switch. Circuit breaker, I think it's a 50 amp. So I can actually turn off the solar panels, isolate them with that switch if I want to do any work downstream of those solar panels without worrying about shorting out shit. So yeah, that isolates the panels, and as you can see, we've got the 16mm cable coming out the bottom there. So you know, the power from all 3 panels is going into one cable there. Just turn that back on. So that runs down to the iTechworld DC to DC charger. So yeah, the wires from the alternator connect up to there. Particular Anderson plug there, solar coming in as well. I've also got the 4mm wire from the fourth panel coming in here as well with its own fuse, so that goes in there. That cable runs underneath the floor here all the way out to that storage box on the outside where I've got an Anderson plug. I can just plug in that that fourth solar panel. So obviously the power from the DC to DC charger here goes via 16mm cable to this 50 amp breaker switch here for starters, so I can isolate that as well manually, and it's also like a circuit breaker thingy. Those 16mm wires go up into this box here where the batteries and everything else are. Show you that in a second. There's my AC 20 amp charger, so that guy gets power from the grid here. If we're plugged into power at a caravan park or whatever, I can just turn this on, turn that guy on, that'll start charging up the batteries. So I think it's just 6mm wire plus a fuse coming off that 20 amp charger. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything down in there, just the two chargers plus the electro block piece of crap. So the power from those two guys flows up through the floor here, and then we go across. Now this is potentially where things get a bit possibly wrong. I'm pretty sure it's all good enough, like it all works, but yeah, so all of the positive connections from the DC to DC, the charger, and all the outputs and everything as well go to this 50 amp breaker switch, master switch here. From there we've just got one wire going to the positive on this battery, and then those two batteries are connected together. Obviously we're using 50mm wire here, good heavy duty shit. So we've got all the positive connections are coming off this particular battery, all the negative connections come off the other battery, so that they work as a single unit rather than just having all the positives coming off the same one. Then you'd just be using this battery mostly. You're better off going across them, so positive on one, negative on the other for all the loads. As hopefully you can see there, we've only got one wire coming off the negative there. That goes down to the shunt, the iTechworld shunt down there, and then all of the negatives are connected to the other side of the shunt. Now this is probably the only weakness in this system at the moment. I don't have a fuse on the power for the shunt. This is just a very small wire anyway, it doesn't draw a lot of power. They say to put a 1 amp fuse on this guy. I will do that when I get a chance. So yeah, like a lot of these installs, I see people have all their stuff mounted on nice carpeted boards, and all the wires are routed behind the boards. This is sort of more serviceable to me, like everything's visible, I can see everything there. If I need to change something or replace anything, I can see it all there straight away. I don't have to take panels off or whatever. It's all very accessible. So yeah, but there are quite a lot of wires coming out of that switch there, but that is good. I can just flick that switch and everything is isolated from the battery that way. All the loads coming out of here are fused individually. Got a bunch of fuses there. Obviously power coming from there is going to the electro block. I've got power going from there to the fridge, which is constantly on. There's the two chargers. We've got the 50mm wire here going to the 250 amp big dog fuse, which then goes to the inverter here. Now you can see there's an extra bit of cable here. You're like, why didn't you make that shorter? Well, from what I've been informed by YouTube, you've got to have your negative and positive cables the same length to your inverter. So this one's got to come all the way from the negative through the shunt and then up here to this terminal here. So I had to make the positive cable the same length. I'm not sure what happens if you don't do that, but I didn't want to risk it. I had enough cable there to do that, so all good. So yeah, obviously these are connected together in parallel, giving us a total of 480 amp hours. These batteries are strapped to the floor. Now there are regulations in place now, guys, where if you're doing an upgrade to lithium, you have to have the batteries in a sealed unit. They can't be out in your living area. Obviously you can't have one of those batteries sitting on the floor there. That is illegal. They've got to be in a sealed unit, and they've also got to be vented to the outside. Now these, luckily, there is already a vent underneath these batteries. It goes to the outside. They are raised up off the floor, sitting on pieces of timber, and strapped down to that as well. So the only thing I've really got to do to make this fully compliant now is to seal this off. It's got to be properly sealed and whatever from the living area. I'll just quickly show you guys. So from the inverter, we've got the remote cable, and we've also got the display cable from the shunt. Both of those go up through here to this panel here. So that's my display panel. Shows me how many amp hours I've got remaining. 468 amp hours remaining at the moment, 97%. It's going to take 3 hours and 2 minutes to charge up with the solar that we're getting at the moment, which is only about 54 watts because there's a cloud over. I'm getting 4 amps in and a voltage there, 13.3. So very handy to have this little panel. Basically, when you're running off a finite supply of power, you know, it's not unlimited. We've only got what we've got. You want to be keeping an eye on it. You don't want to be running these batteries down to 0 and then, you know, you've got nothing left for your fridge. So yeah, you do need to keep an eye on it, and that's the best way to do it. This here is the remote for the inverter, of course. So it's as simple as flicking that switch and then the inverter comes on. Now I'll just show you guys how I've got the inverter set up. I didn't want to have to get an electrician involved and have all the power points in the motorhome connected to the inverter. I'm pretty happy with how it's set up now. I haven't touched the 240 volt system that's existing now, so I can still plug into shore power, grid power from the cable outside. That will make all these power points work as normal. It'll make this one work so that I can turn on the charger to charge up the batteries, of course. But when we're not connected to power, then these don't work. The only power points that work when we're not connected to power are the ones that are connected up to the inverter. So I've just got basically 2 power boards. So I've got that one there for my PC and whatever else I want to plug in down here. And I've got another power board up here in the kitchen. Now at the moment all it's plugged into that, we've got a cord that goes down here. It's a bit of a pain in the ass doing it this way because we've got to have cords for that, for stuff. But yeah, that's for the microwave. So whack the inverter on, hit that switch, microwave can be used. Then if we need anything else plugged in, coffee machine or whatever, right there. It's certainly not the most convenient way of doing it, having 2 separate 240 volt systems, but it's the easiest to set up basically. So yeah, I don't actually have the inverter connected to the PowerPoint at the moment. I'm not too sure if I'm going to bother with that. You know, using the ATS switch, the automatic transfer switch, I think probably don't really need that functionality, but so it's good to have it there if you want it. And, you know, aside from being no electrician, I'm also no cabinet maker, but I'm pretty happy with how my little box here that I made for the controls and the display here turned out. Even the timber matches the fake timber on here. You know, I was just using scraps that I found at home to make this. Oh, another quick tip for you is to get these 8-ton hydraulic crimpers off eBay. They cost me like 35 bucks or something delivered. Cheap as. Like if you look at some other crimpers, guys, for these big wires, you're looking at hundreds of dollars for other ones. This one, I was like, oh, I'll take a chance and see how it goes, but it works really freaking well. It's difficult to use because you really need 3 hands to hold it, but if you can use your knees or something to hold one part, it does really good crimps. The sizing on the dies for that crimper are way out, so just, yeah, you got to eyeball it up, pick one that's looks like it's going to be the right size, but it does really nice crimps. It crimps up to 70mm squared wires. I've only crimped up to 50, but it does a really nice job on those 50mm wires and also the 16s. So yeah, well worth it for 35 bucks. I've seen a lot of reviews on YouTube, people saying they start leaking oil and all that sort of shit, but I only really needed them for this one job and they got me through that for 35 bucks. Can't complain about it. If I get to use them again in the future, even better. Tell you what though, guys, there's something pretty damn cool about having beers cooled by the sun, free solar energy, running a computer from the sun. It's all awesome. Righto, so now we've been actually living off grid using the iTechworld stuff for approximately 5 days now, and a couple of things I've noticed. Now, one thing is with the inverter, and from what I've read, pretty much all inverters are the same. The fan is noisy, so when the inverter fan comes on, you know about it. Thankfully, most of the time you're not really going to be using the inverter while you're sleeping, so it shouldn't bother you, and you can sort of put it, like, it's under the seat now, but yeah, you can still hear it when it comes on for sure. But that seems to be across the board with all inverters, different brands, whatever. It only comes on for a short amount of time. Like if the microwave or the coffee machine's running, obviously the fan runs because that inverter does get hot using that much power. But just using the computer to edit and stuff, it comes on maybe for like a minute, maybe every 10 minutes or something like that. So yeah, it's not a huge deal, but yeah, it's definitely a loud fan, or I think there's two fans in there, you can hear them quite clearly. The only other one thing that I would mention is that we're not getting enough freaking sunlight in Queensland at the moment. It's cloudy again. I think we've got more than enough batteries with that 480 amp hours. That's heaps of battery. I think we just need more solar, especially for these sort of days. Like, you do get some solar in, even when it's cloudy, you get enough solar in probably to run the fridge and to still charge your phones and stuff like that. But using the computer or anything like that, like you know, obviously you can still run the microwave because you only use it for a couple of minutes at a time, and the coffee machine, you know, it draws a lot of power, but it's only for a short amount of time. When I'm editing on the PC, that's drawing, you know, a couple of 100 watts for hours on end, and yeah, the solar just can't quite keep up when it's cloudy. The roof of this van isn't perfectly clear either. You know, a lot of the times the panels are partially shaded by the TV antenna or the air conditioning unit or whatever. So it's not getting full sun to all those panels. So from what I've found so far, 600 watts of solar panels is not quite enough. I'm glad that I've got that one that I can put out on the grass and catch, you know, and point it directly at the sun and catch, you know, a lot more sunlight, a lot more power. That's really been a godsend for this for this system. So yeah, I mean, if you had two panels that you could put out in the yard or whatever, that would probably be even better. But yeah, definitely the more solar panels you can squeeze up on your roof or whatever, the better. Definitely go for as much solar as you can. I only wish I could fit more up there. I might be able to fit one of those flexible panels onto the curved part of the hump at the front here. I might look at doing that eventually, but yeah, more solar, as much battery as you can fit in, and as much solar as you can fit up there, and you'll be golden. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this video, hopefully a little bit of entertainment or whatever. Yeah, other than wanting maybe a little bit more solar, I think that the system's pretty well set and sweet. I'm really happy with it. If I had more space down in under the seat here and a little bit more money to waste, I probably would have gone with bus bars just to make it look nicer and be easier to add and take stuff off the power. But yeah, once again, thanks for watching. Thanks heaps to iTechworld for helping me out a bit with this stuff. Been really good, really happy with the products. Great bang for buck, guys. 100% recommend. As if on cue, there goes that inverter. I don't know if the camera mics will be picking that up, but yeah, it's not obnoxiously loud, but you know it's there. Anyway, we'll see you on the next video. Stay safe out there. Catch you soon.